climate change education, where we are going to explore its critical role in addressing the climate crisis. We'll begin by looking at the global perspective and recommendations for integrating climate change into education programs, followed by CE's impactful work in the field. We will then shift to the Indian perspective. So from global perspective, we are going to go to the Indian perspective, focusing on the tailored solutions for diverse communities and delve into the higher education's role in fostering green skills in youth. Additionally, we will discuss the importance of communication and advocacy in promoting climate change education and conclude with youth perspective, highlighting their innovative ideas and contribution. We hope this discussion will inspire further action and collaboration in advancing climate change education across the world. So now let me begin by introducing the esteemed panelists that we have for today. So let me start with Dr. Pramod Sharma. He is a Senior Director of Education at Foundation of Environment Education, a global organization. Under him, we have flagship programs like Eco School, LEAF, learning about forest, and Young Reporters for the Environment in various countries. His extensive expertise and leadership have significantly contributed to empowering educators and students worldwide to take meaningful action for a sustainable future. Then we have, so maybe you can clap after every introduction at least. We all had good breakfast in the morning, right? Yes. Yes. Professor Kichi Oyasu is Director, Education, Cooperation Department, Asia Pacific Cultural Center for UNESCO, which is ACCU. He worked with UNESCO Bangkok and Dhaka as a program specialist more than 20 years for promoting education for all and education for sustainable development. We welcome you, sir. Then we have Dr. Shweta Purohit. She is the program director at CEE and she looks after the climate change program. We welcome you. Then we have Dr. Chong Shimre. She is a distinguished professor in the Department of Education in Science and Mathematics at NCERT, New Delhi. With extensive expertise in education, she has made significant contributions to curriculum development, pedagogy, teacher training in science and mathematics education. And right now, we all are working together for the Grade 10 textbook. So that is how we are meeting her very oftenly. So we welcome you, Dr. Chong. Then we have Professor Amit Garg. He is a professor at the Public System Group at IIM Ahmedabad. He is a lead author for the reports of UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. He is currently the co-editor-in-chief of Carbon Management Journal. Professor Garg was felicitated by the Prime Minister of India in 2007 for his outstanding contribution to climate change research. We welcome you, sir. We have Karuna ma'am. She is a country director for Earth Day Network India, a registered trust inspired by the global NGO earthday.org. As a regional director for Asia, Karunaji oversees programs across 25 countries, impacting approximately 5 billion people. We welcome you, ma'am. And then we have our young panelist, Julia Norman. She is a member of the Climate Change Group at CEE. She is also Banyan Impact Fellow with the American Indian Foundation. We welcome you, Julia. Now I request Professor Garg. He is the chair of the panel and he is going to address us with the opening remarks. Please, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much and very good morning to all of you. In slightly wintry atmosphere, coming at 10 o'clock could be a challenge, especially when you had a good night discussion here last evening. So thank you very much all for coming and being here on the panel also with me. So I think my remarks sometimes may become a little, I don't say aggressive, but maybe matter of fact. So please pardon me if I say something which is not to your liking. The first point, I'll make 2-3 points. The first point is that market would value skills more then activism. I do not say, but how do you put value? Then sometimes value is also put differently. But I am putting from getting financial returns, getting being heard and all those things. So market would value getting a good job, all those things. And skills, if they are more practical skills, that is even more valued. Not only just skills. For that, we have to start from very young, how to impart those required skills. And the skill requirement keeps on changing in the world, in every field, especially on climate change. Lot of mathematics, lot of data is coming into climate change skills also. And then, for example, this environmental, social, corporate governance, ESG, how it is put. It requires a lot of data crunching, how the money is flowing, how the companies are performing, and that requires skills. So that is one way. And then when we talk about climate change, it has 5 pillars in my opinion: mitigation, adaptation, finance, technology transfer, and education sort of thing. So mitigation, education links everything no, together. So mitigation requires a lot of skills. We keep on talking equity and all those things, but what is the number? How do you say equity is met or not met? So you need a lot of modeling, because we are talking about long term. We are talking about 2050, 2070, 2100 and 2030 also. So you have to, maybe you need not be an astrologer to see how the world is going to be, but you have to do a lot of modeling. So that is one skill which the youth in higher education should be provided. Second skill is similarly mitigation, then adaptation. Adaptation is sometimes I would say is a little cousin of mitigation. Adaptation nobody talks about much. Now the world has started talking about adaptation, but if for a country like India and many developing countries, mitigation of course is important, but adaptation is more important. I was reading yesterday that world average temperature has already crossed 1.5 yesterday. 1.5, and then why are we talking about this, keeping it 1.5? So all these things are practical requirement. If temperature goes up, farmers don't know how they are going to see the monsoons or rains or temperature, what crops will grow, what will not grow. Cities cannot visualize that how the waterways will be blocked in my city. This is maybe maladaptation, maldevelopment, or something like that. So that is the second skill. Technology transition is something we talk about in isolation. Oh, this EV is very good. Yes, nothing wrong against EV, nothing wrong against solar, but you have to have a holistic picture. Every country, if it is Denmark, different perspective. If it is India, different perspective. If it is China, USA, every country will have their own national circumstances to meet these challenges. That's the first one. Then the second one is preparing modules. Preparing modules means for education. We need to prepare module for educators, because teachers also need training, and training is once you have taken a master's degree in education doesn't mean that you are trained for life. You have to train every 5 years or 10 years to know what is happening in the world before facing a class. So that has to be discipline based. If it is mitigation, discipline based. If it is renewable energy, mitigation based. If it is carbon market, again discipline based. Adaptation, different sectors, all those things, preparing modules for educators. That is, I think, number one requirement. And I am aware CEE is doing quite a lot of things on this. It has to be supported all over the world, because that is required. Second is for students, same thing. So students' modules have to be prepared, which they can understand quickly and maybe implement them as their skills. Because when they go to the market, of course, education could also be for the fun of education, but mostly it is also for getting a job. in the market on making some money. So for going to the job market, we have to be very, very skillful, I will say. You have to learn some skills which you can put on your CV and take it to the market. That is number two. Practitioners. I am working quite a lot on India's CEBI, Business Responsibility and Sustainable Reporting, BRSR. And companies don't know what they are reporting many times. And then there is no cross check on what they are reporting. So these things at practitioner level, at company level, also a lot of training would be required for them. I don't know whether we are ready or whether they are ready, because to train also, it should not be seen as a cost. It should be seen as something which will add value to them over a period of time. The fourth thing is government. Government is all pervading, and we say, oh, government has done so and so, but who is government? People like you and me and maybe higher level are sitting in government. There is cascading effect. You go at central government level, like India system I'm talking about, then you go to state level, then you go to district level, and maybe village level. So how do you explain to at every level that what is required of them? How to implement government policies? Many times central government gives a policy, okay, solar will be this much potential, but then how to do it? What extra policies to be made? What is the impact? All those things has to be done. Cascading effect. Then last one in this, my list, is banks and financial institutions. They don't know many a time that where to finance. And people are having a good project, banks say, no, no, this is not good. Where is your revenue stream? How do you get money? So all these issues become very important. I know of a UNEP. UNEP, there was a project on educating Canara Bank in India on how to finance for solar. And they said, first time somebody is telling us how to finance. So I think these issues are very important, educating them, and in an integrated manner. I think CEE is very well placed to do this, and many of you, I can see, Shweta tells me about 70 countries were represented here over the last days, and they'll be there. That is extremely, extremely encouraging. So we take that forward, we educate, we create modules, and modules with the help of guys who will be delivering them. That is very important. Otherwise, you create something in isolation, this will never be understood completely, and then delivery will be totally different. It's like mark by a vernier caliper, measure by a vernier caliper, mark by a chalk, and cut by a saw. So it should not be like that. We prepare something which people don't understand completely. We keep a pulse on the market. What is the market requiring? If we just say, no, this is how the thing should be, no, that is not fair. If a farmer is not buying your product, it means there is something wrong with the product, not with the farmer. So we have to be very careful in designing the right product and doing the right things. I won't take much time because very eminent panelists are sitting there. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom, plus the way you have managed the time. You still had 3 minutes left, sir. So, so you will have a lot to share in between. So now I request Professor or Dr. Pramodji to please come.
Thank you. Good morning. This morning I was just looking at some of the Facebook posts related to the disaster that's happening in USA, and one of the posts struck me. It says, climate change will manifest as a series of disasters viewed through phones, with footage that gets closer and closer to where you live until you are the one filming it. So powerful. It's near, it's happening, and it's getting closer. And that's the challenge in terms of how do we create impact, and how do you demonstrate that education can create impact? I think that's the biggest challenge. And 2024, first time we breached the threshold, the mental or psychological threshold that I would say of 1.5 degree for the first time as such. And it's not getting better. At FEE, through the Gaia 2030, we have climate change as a important one of the themes, along with biodiversity and pollution, and also as a cross-cutting theme in all the work that we are doing, whether it's through the Eco School program or within the other two tourism-based program, Green Key and Blue Flag. And the reason we took the hard work of working out and coordinating the Greening Education Partnership was our belief that with clear targets that are being given, there is a potential to bring about impact through the education systems around the world. Schools, colleges, universities are the largest number of public institutions or sites or buildings. If they can reduce their carbon footprint and also educate and mobilize action in their communities, we can have the real impact that we want. The challenge that we are seeing is the focus on between mitigation and adaptation. It's real, it's happening, but not much is happening on the adaptation front within the education system or the schools. It's a very small area that is being considered. Most of the actions, when we look at from the school action or college action point of view, they are around mitigation. But then we need to prepare our young people and the communities on the front on the issues of adaptation. And the challenge, and then we have been asked again and again, is that how you are creating impact. The temperature is not going down, or emissions are not going down, or the habits or behaviors that reduce emissions are not changing. And that's a question, I think that's a big question that we need to all reflect on, is what's the challenge that this is how you how we as a group of professionals address this challenge, because it cannot be input and process. It has to demonstrate impact in terms of the output and outcome that we want. If we are not able to change the increase in the temperature or increase in the carbon emissions, then we are not going anywhere and we will be questioned again and again. And that brings to the challenge that we often face. And I just remembered that while staying in the hotel, where they put a sign saying that if you don't want your towel to be washed, please hang it here. And I'm doing it for 3 days, and every day it's taken out. So it's value versus packaging versus really the intention. And while working with Green Key, the challenge is education of the staff, helping them understand why this is being done, what is the intention behind it, helping them understand. So it's not just education when we are looking at the formal level system, education in the business and workplaces also, where people understand why certain sign is there as such, what's the meaning of it, and why we are trying to promote a certain behavior, and how if somebody is helping with that intention, then how can you support that? The other aspect is hope, and that can be only created by agency. The anxiety can be only addressed by agency, and in all our programs we are solution oriented, and we are into implementation of actions that can bring about the impact, whether they are tourism program or school programs, and that I think has to be, and we have talked about handprint and solution-based approaches, but we need to focus on, and we need to be more clear and aggressive on that front. And then in this process, what we have also realized is that we need not, and we need to also, or I would say rephrase it, we need to refrain from putting certain regions in the world, especially young people, in a guilt trap for the things that they have not done. They have not been responsible for it. As a white child in Europe or anywhere else, we need to create empathy on the both sides, and we need to be we need to acknowledge this aspect, is that how do we make sure that young people in high carbon emission countries are not being targeted as people who created the problem, but then how we can make them participate in the solutions that we want. And ultimately, the best way, I think, is also about helping with tools that help people understand. Like we know the data-driven strategies, like in terms of weight loss or health and everything works well. How can we make those tools easier for people to monitor their carbon emissions and take action and see that what and how we can bring about the difference, and in terms of real time as such. Understanding of the science is poor, that we are seeing that in the school and education systems too, and a lot of investment and capacity building is required on that point. And also I think one of the panelists on day one mentioned and hinted on the population, and it's well documented. With quality education, we can also address the problem of population with gender empowerment and providing education to girls. So we need to see education just not from a climate change education perspective, but also from a quality education perspective to bring about the impact that we want. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Especially telling about the importance of hope to curb this climate anxiety through our small handprint actions. So now I request Professor Kichi Oyasu, so please give us some remarks about global perspective and recommendations.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and my name is Kichi Oyasu. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I was given a theme of global perspective and recommendations. So I'm going to talk about CCE under the broader framework of SDG 4. And as introduced, I used to work with UNESCO, and we work with the idea of the right-based approach. And very often, the government is duty bearers in education or social welfare services and so on. And the people are right holders. It's okay? Yeah? But for the environmental issues, it's, we are the right holders. We claim our right. At the same time, we have to behave properly and understand issues and behave. So we are also duty bearers. So that's one of the points I'd like to emphasize. And this, the SDGs goal 4 is inclusive quality education and lifelong learning. So I'll touch upon the notion of inclusion. Sometimes inclusion is a bit, integration and inclusion is used in a similar way, but yeah, we have a exclusive situation, and we put the people in needs in a separately segregation, and then we bring them into the mainstream. That is inclusion. But the problem is that mainstream does not change. So we empower the people in a difficult situation and then meet the requirements in the mainstream. But inclusion is the overall mainstream should be changed. So this idea is similar to what we discussed, handicap and also disability. We lose the function, for example, by accident, we then we cannot move around, and so we are handicapped. But if the social environment can be changed, accommodate to mobility, then we don't have handicap. It's the same for the language. We don't understand certain language, but if we have a good interpretation, then we don't have handicap. So the point is that this handicap situation, non-inclusive environment is made by the majority people. So majority people should continue to learn. This is my next point. So school education is important, as we discussed very much during this conference, but it's not everything. I mean, we have school and up to universities, but we have many other places and opportunities to learn. And also, we also learn not only the school age and youth, but we continue to learn. So, and also intergenerationally, and this learning space should be linked to each other. So this kind of comprehensive lifelong learning should be important to promote the climate change issues and environmental issues. And one of the reasons is we have already seen that school curriculum is overburdened. We have so many issues to understand, but we cannot do it in a school. Even if the teachers are excellent, we cannot teach everything. So it's important to look at this. We continue to learn. So the competencies, so if teachers have an understanding of the lifelong learning, so they do not focus just only the cognitive issues, knowledge transfers, but encourage students to think, encourage students to collaborate, and encourage students to take actions. And we can continue this kind of competencies for after we graduate school in the workplace, and we can continue to learn each other, collaborate each other, understand people, and then negotiate each other. So this kind of competencies, we should develop not only the school venues, but also other places, this life-wide learning opportunities. So my last slide is, it is very important to have quality formal education. There is no doubt. And, but there are certain group of people who have not access to formal education. So we should have good alternative learning programs. And also, learning should be relevant to real life and for individuals, and also we need to think about the society. And this learning is dynamic, as the moderator mentioned, that it's dynamic and in the market to meet the situation and so on. So we should continue to learn, and then intersectoral and intergenerational. We use the traditional local wisdom, and at the same time young people can share the updated ICT technologies. So, so to develop the good base of foundation through the basic education, like a schooling or non-formal education, literacy, or basic education programs. So this kind of structured learning is important to equip the people with competencies. We should encourage students and young people to learn how to learn, so that we can be a self-direct learners, and we can continue to learn throughout our life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Shweta to please come and talk about CEE's climate change education initiatives.
Sure. Thank you, Gayatri. Namaskar. Good morning to one and all. It's an honor to be part of this esteemed panel and talking about the various initiatives that CEE has done and is doing on climate change education integration. And when I say this, I also acknowledge the works that not just the climate change group of CEE does, but also so many other groups of CEE are also doing, and we know that climate change is interdisciplinary, and we work together to multiply and scale the impact of the works we do in climate change education integration. So we all know that climate change education is actually a subset of the larger umbrella of education for sustainable development, and also an area under environmental education. But for the last over a decade or so, you know, climate change education has gained more prominence and more importance, and we know why. The urgency to act on climate change emergency is really forcing education to be used and more effectively be used as a tool to address climate change in many other ways. And it's, I think, one of the most important tools to really take the knowledge, awareness, skills, as the chair was talking about, to every individual across the globe. So talking about the philosophy of CEE when it comes to climate change education, I have two things to say. We have been constantly brainstorming and working on the concept of education-based solutions for climate change. We know the concept of nature-based solutions. So likewise, we've been thinking around a lot on education-based solutions to address climate change, and also the other philosophy of handprint actions for change, wherein we focus on not just the competencies-based learning in school and higher education, and also in adult and lifelong learning, as the previous panelist was talking, but also taking positive actions in individual lives also is what our philosophy is. So with this philosophy, I would like to, the expanse of the work that we do on climate change education is really huge, but if I try and categorize the areas wherein we are working to integrate climate change education, well, these are the 6 broader thematics, that we work on climate change education, starting with policy, bridging, and consultations. And we know it's important. It all starts with the right policies and effective policies and consultations. And of course, research and assessments that constantly is needed to feed into not just the policies, but also the programs that we have been doing and innovating, not just in India, but globally. And then the most important, making climate change a part of our formal curriculum and also a important part of our non-formal learning is what we are also doing. The chair has very rightly highlighted the importance of teaching learning resources and teacher modules, training the teachers who are actually transacting climate change concepts in the schools and higher education. That's an important area of our work as well. And we have pioneered a number of school programs since last 40 years, but the focus has also shifted to climate change over the last more than a decade. So a lot of those school programs are also integrating the concepts of climate change in depth and intensively. In fact, I'm sure you all are aware that we are also experimenting the foundational stage, education, nature-based education within the campus of CE itself. And then the last area of work is engaging communities, because without that, I think the scale and impact cannot be reached. So that's our, the 6th category of our work in integrating climate change education. Moving forward, I will now only present the glimpses. I know we are short of time, only the glimpses of our works. So, when it comes to policy bridging and consultations, we've done national level consultations post the announcement of National Education Policy of 2020 and before the NCF School Education 2023 was being launched. We did a very important national consultation on integrating climate change in school ecosystems, and none other than the chair of the NCF, Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, also chaired this consultation that fed into the recommendations of integrating climate change education in schools. We've also done, national consultations on greening education partnership. Those who may not be aware, this is one of the, the most recent, greening education partnership by the UN Education Transformation Summit. And the aim of this partnership is to make every learner climate ready by 2030. And we know we are running short of the Agenda 2030. So it is really working on an action mode, on an impact mode to scale the greening of education, all the sectors of education. Talking about the subnational policy works and assessments that we do, we are working with the state government of Karnataka on the Karnataka state action plan on climate change. We are assessing how better the schemes that are put out for water and agriculture sector can be taken to the last mile communities for whom they are designed. And all our policy briefs are really feeding into the next step of actions that the state government is doing in these sectors. We're also starting shortly to work with JEDA, which is the Gujarat Energy Development Agency, and trying to make a course on climate governance for policymakers. Then we are also strongly promoting and propagating the ACE agenda of UNFCCC, which is a very important agenda, the only agenda that talks about education, in the UN system to address climate change. And we participate in every COP as an observer organization to kind of advance on the Action for Climate Empowerment agenda. And for the last 2 years in the COPs, we are also doing the, the main sessions on mainstreaming climate education in the COPs also. These are a few glimpses of our works, of how we consult with the communities, with policymakers and experts in our various programs. These are glimpses of the research and assessment, and as I said, research is really very important to feed into the policies and our programs, so glimpses of that. The curricular integration work, a lot has already been talked about in a number of parallel sessions that we are doing. We are, under the aegis of the curricular area group of environment education by Ministry of Education and CERT, developing syllabus and textbook for grade 10 on environmental education subject, and also for grade 11 and 12 on sustainability and climate change subject. Interestingly, we are also working with ICSE board, which is the largest private board in India, for developing their EE subject syllabus and teaching resources, and also the mandatory knowledge and skill module. The chair was talking about skills, So in the middle stage, we are integrating through this module, and of course supporting the revisions of state curriculum frameworks also with a few states, including Gujarat. Quickly now, this is the way we are leveraging non-formal learning through a dedicated course on our CEE Academy, which has recently been launched, and it's a MOOC course, Learn Climate Science, Lead Climate Action, and anybody who's interested can really log into this and take this course up. Teaching, learning, pedagogies, and teacher training, glimpses of this. We are recently partnered with NCERT and UNICEF to develop a national scale module on climate change education for teachers of middle school. That's where the integration of climate change should start before they lead into a dedicated course on environment in grades 9 and 10. We are also piloting this teacher training module with support of the regional education institutes and NCERT, thanks to them. Teaching, learning, these are some of the glimpses of our other teaching, learning pedagogies. We are innovating teacher training courses in Maharashtra, global warming, climate change, and Maharashtra, teacher's handbook and handprints for change handbook. And we are also making an online course at Asia level under the aegis of ATECCE. Professor Kichi Oyasu is here. He's been one of the advisors in this work as well. So 9 Asian countries will come together to develop this interesting course on climate actions for teachers. It will be an online course. Our school programs, GenCan, Saksham Shala, which promotes climate resilient schools in the rural schools in Gujarat also. Eco School program, Ardyan Paryavaran Mitra. I talked about the Planet Discovery Center already, which is CEE's early childhood education program to nurture young minds with nature as their learning environment. Engaging communities, well, we all know about our flagship work that we did on, taking climate awareness, knowledge, and skills to the whole of India, through the Science Express Climate Action Special, where 4.5 million visitors took the advantage of the exhibits that were put there. We also engage with youths big time to make them aware and act on climate change adaptation, rural communities, public information sessions, young reporters on environment, Ty Turner, so many else. The time is short, but yes, we can discuss it outside also. So these are the few initiatives, but I would also want to talk here about moving forward, what are our plans and what we really think we can do ahead. So we really wish to work also with industries, and sir was rightly mentioning, it's important to sensitize on the ESG reportings and trainings and monitoring. That's something that we are also looking forward, and also to support them on their net zero commitments through education-based initiatives, and to develop contemporary pedagogies for climate actions and skill-based learning with students. So we are trying to innovate in that sense, digital games or those kinds of things. So yeah, the road is long, but we are making all efforts to be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shweta. Now I request Dr. Chong to please come.
Good morning, everyone. So I will be focusing on the formal education. I think that's what is expected of me. I think I'll be repeating myself if you have attended some of my previous sessions, but still, nevertheless, I hope it's going to be useful. So I'm from NCERT, that is the National Council of Educational Research and Training, and what we do is we are the apex body for development of curriculum framework, syllabus, textbooks, other resources, teacher training modules. So we are an autonomous organization under the Ministry of Education. So we have this huge responsibility of catering to the needs of everybody in this country. So you can imagine what we are doing and what we must be going through. So, so the focus will be on the curriculum and especially on the climate change education. That's what I'm going to do. So we go through this very interesting sequence of, process steps that we do whenever we come up with some resources. So it's like, the sequence is something like, we have the national education policy, then we prepare, based on the national education policy, we prepare the national curriculum framework, based on which we prepare the syllabus. Based on the syllabus, we write the textbooks, other resources, teacher training modules. And so that's a normal sequence that we follow in all of the resources that we have been developing so far. So every national education policy have a few things, few highlights or few emphasis that they want to focus on. So for this, the latest National Education Policy 2020 that came up in 2020. So all of those points are important, but I will just highlight just 3 points. So one is rootedness in India, that is strongly emphasized that students need to have knowledge about India, its practices, traditional practices, cultural practices, and all kinds of things which is related to India. Another thing is about, which I feel it's so important when we talk about climate change or environmental education. It says students need to learn, what is right. And what is right, we're not just going to tell them, but they should be given opportunity so that they're able to take the, ethical decisions. And which is so important for us because environmental education or climate change education, it's all about ethics, right? So I feel that this point, which was highlighted in the National Education Policy, was very, very important for our work. And there are other points as well in that second bullet. So, I will not get into that. Empathy, compassion, and all of those are there, which we're all familiar with. Third is the adaptation of textbooks, NCERT textbooks. So we write textbooks, and you can imagine every state that you go to, or even many of the districts are so different in terms of the environment, in terms of the resources, in terms of so many things. So we cannot be possibly writing textbooks or other resources catering to everybody, meeting everybody's need. And so what we do is we try to take some very relevant example from this place for this topic, for another example for another topic, another concept. So that's how we try to integrate or take examples as much as possible from as much as states that we can cover. That's what we do. But we cannot possibly cover everybody's, examples. So NEP says that states should be adapting NCERT's resources, and that is so important because the issues, especially when it comes to environmental issues, it's very different, and the way they have to come up with the solutions are also very different. And so adapting, contextualizing NCERT's textbook, India textbooks is going to be very important. I was in Tripura last week, and they just got the this NCERT's, the soft copy of NCERT's textbook, and I said, what's going to be different? They said they're going to put in some state context into the textbooks, and I think that's very important. If every state could do that, I think it's really going to be good. So those are the 3 very important points that I felt that's mentioned in the National Education Policy 2020. So based on the National Education Policy, the National Curriculum Framework 2023 was framed. And again, in that, if I focus on environmental education and climate change education, this is how it is approaching to cater to or to meet those. So one is as a cross-cutting theme, and they titled it, Learning About and Caring for the Environment. So this is going to cut across all subject areas, not just in science and geography, but in maths, languages, and everything else, physical education, art education, everything else. Another way of second way of which NCFSE, that is the National Curriculum Framework on School Education 2023, proposed is we are going to have a separate subject, and this is a totally new thing that very bold step, I would say, that NCFSE 2023 has come up with. We have never had a subject called environmental education so far. Of course, before 2005, some states used to teach something about environment and all of those, but it was not so strongly done or clearly done as it is going to be done now. So we are going to have a separate textbook for grade 10, for which Kartik Sarabhai is the chairperson of that committee. So we are going to write textbooks, separate textbook also for climate change education. We call it Sustainability and Climate Change for grade 11 and 12. So there is a lot of scope coming up in future, in few years now. So what we do right now is that we have already come up with, based on the new NCFSE, we have already developed the textbook for grade 3 and grade 6, and other grades are in process and progress. So we're soon going to have our new textbooks. So this new, the National Curriculum Framework for School Education 2023 is a different, it follows a different approach in the sense that it's competency-based. So there are several competencies that's related to environment, climate change. If you look into the document, you'll come across that. So you really don't have to read all this. I just, as a proof, I just put it there in the slide. So not only in science and physics and chemistry or biology or geography, we also have it in philosophy, you know, as you can see there. So that is something. So what I will recommend is that, you know, these are very common points like systematic integration of concepts and concerns related to environmental issues or climate change education, because you cannot be teaching about climate change education in one class, everything in one class. So there should be gradual inclusion of different concepts in different grades. So that is systematic inclusion will be very important this time. Avoid giving only information or statements that we have done in previous textbooks, like we just give some information which doesn't make sense to students at all. And we want a lot of pictorial representation, you know, so as to supplement or support the text. Then use appropriate activities or case studies or anecdotes. That's again, contextualization is one area which we really have to take care when we're developing the resources. Make it interdisciplinary as much as possible. Although we're teaching subjects, specific subjects, science, math, social science, and all of this, in that, if we can make it more interdisciplinary, then the objectives or the goals of you know, environmental related issues can be served better. Those things are very common, but now I want to take you here. So we all know, for decades we have known that knowledge as promote, yeah, I'll be finishing 1 minute. I think I can take one because my previous panelists, they were very economical in the time, so I think I'll take one more extra minute. So yeah, anyway, so Pramod mentioned about, other panelists mentioned about, you know, things are not happening, you know, although we know. So we have, several studies have found that knowledge alone is not helping at all. You know, we talk about, you must have, all these sessions you must have heard about, India has been sustainable since ancient times and all of those. But we are not even asking, why are we not practicing that anymore? It's not about telling them again that this is a good practice, you know. It is time now to find out why are we not doing what we used to do. So I think that's a better question. Instead of giving them more information about, okay, this is how, if you do practice this, reuse, recycle things, it's going to help that way. Because they know it. It's just that why they're not doing it. So why we do certain things, why we, many pro-environmental behaviors that we do, why do we do? Because it's not because we know it. It's more because I would say that we have some love for that, or we have some aesthetic value of that, or we have some cultural or religious connections with that. Ethics, intrinsic value, instrumental value, and all of this, you know, it has very little to do with knowledge. Of course, knowledge is very important, but then we have not been able to achieve. So if we keep on focusing on the knowledge aspect, then we will be doing the same thing, expecting a different result, and that's not going to happen. So I will want us to, whenever we are developing any resources, maybe we want to emphasize other aspects other than the knowledge component. I think that's what we should be doing. Teacher training, very important, as we said, Professor Garg also mentioned. So this is one area that we need to do. Again, in teacher training, although we're going to have a separate subject now in environmental education, climate change, sustainability and climate change, teacher training program, pre-service programs still do not have this course provided. So the government have to think about it, you know. So I'll just end with that. All the resources that we have developed in NCERT, they are available in NCERT's website. And if you want to know more about climate change education in India, environmental education, this is a book that I wrote, so you may want to see this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chong. I request Karuna ma'am. Karuna ma'am, if you can please come and address the audience.
Good morning. I want to congratulate CEE for their brilliance, led by the brilliance and the determination and the contributions of their leader, which has then emanated into all the colleagues over here. And congratulate all of you here, because each one of you does something for the environment. Yet, Professor Garg has just reminded us that despite all our efforts, despite the efforts of millions of other organizations, other individuals across the globe, we have breached 1.5 degrees. So where are we going wrong? We have to think about that, because there is not much time left before humanity will have to take Elon Musk's flights to some other planet. What's going to happen? Youth, especially in India, are a large component, and we have to inspire them to be stewards for the environment from a very young age. How do we do that? Perhaps we have to go beyond the written word. As you were just mentioning just now, Professor Simre, why is it that knowledge is not helping? Knowledge from the written word is perhaps not helping because it does not resonate with you. It doesn't have that retentive memory that is required, and it does not bring about an emotional connect. So from Earth Day Network, what we have done is we have used the communication strategies that arts provide to instigate development in children so that they take on the course for the earth. And let's not forget that they are the first generation that are facing climate change, and unfortunately the last that will be able to do anything about it. So with this in mind, we went beyond the written word, and we have developed some programs for children. The latest one that is running is on comic strips. Children love comic strips, so we've been fortunate to get some well-recognized artists who have run workshops with the National Council of Science Museum and us, so that children use that medium to think themselves. The problem is that we give children knowledge, but we don't encourage them to think themselves. So this is one way of doing it. Last year, the Earth Day theme was Planet versus Plastics. So we had a competition where we asked children to use the indigenous art forms to produce their artworks. And these artworks had to explain what the thought was behind them. And the National Museums of Natural History, the director was so impressed with those artworks that came in that they are now making them travel all over India as the starter, as the rennet, that will then encourage teachers to come and talk to them about plastics and why move to alternatives. We have Earth Reel, which is a filmmaking program for youth, where we ask youth to make short films. These might be public service announcements or small films, but the catch here is that they are told that if they are selected or shortlisted, they have to explain the phenomenon they have filmed, they have to say what is wrong there, and they have to say how they can take it forward. So that is a way to get them to understand the problem, but without giving them the written word for it. So we do that with Bijitra Pathshala. And with Bangla Natak, what we have done is we have gone to schools where they may not have as good computer skills to get the knowledge from computers and Google, which is our guru these days. We ask them to walk, most of them walk to schools. So we ask them to observe what they think is an environmental problem and then to develop a script for it. Then Bangla Natak artists help them enact it. It's done before peers, it's done before their parents, it's done on street corners. And to close the loop, we then take them to the municipal corporation and do it before the people over there to help them understand that this is what the public is thinking of, not what you're thinking of sitting in your offices. So these are some of the art forms we've used to communicate with children so that they think of ways how they can be stewards for the environment. Talking about art and advocacy, we have a program called Artists for Earth, where we appeal to senior artists to use their art form to broaden the message about climate change before people. And we've been very fortunate to have, say, Ricky Kedge, who's a 3 times Grammy winner, who have come forward and composed special messages, special songs for kids. L. Subramaniam, the violinist, has done a special piece for Earth for us. We have even actors coming forward, unfortunately not in India, but in other countries. We've had them come forward to talk about climate change from the big platforms that they have. So I have 1 minute left, and I'm going to use that in just going through some of the pictures that are up there. Thank you very much for asking me to come here, and we would be happy to work with all organizations to take this forward in any way that we can contribute. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I request Ms. Julia Norman to please come forward and talk about the youth perspectives.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, esteemed panelists, for having me here today. It's a real honor to be speaking to all of you. I'll be very brief in respect to time, and I just kind of want to echo actually some things I heard on the panel today. When I was thinking about what is important for youth moving forward, because we know that our generation is responsible for driving the change, and we know that our generation is very conscious to climate change. We've grown up with this awareness. I can only imagine it's all the more instilled for people who are right now 10, 11, 12 in school. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that will move towards behavior change, as Dr. Sharma mentioned. Consciousness, awareness does not necessarily drive changed behavior. And that's where I think ethics are so important, and why I feel like climate change ethics, incorporating value systems into climate change education is where it needs to go, and something that we cannot separate when we're thinking about teaching young people the impacts of climate change, teaching them the science of climate change, the policies that have to be adjusted. And when I'm saying ethics, I mean ethics of reciprocity, compassion, rooted in ecologically based principles of interdependence and fair share. I think these things are, sometimes romanticized or idealized, but they're actually very fundamental if we're thinking about raising a group of young people across disciplines, whether they're in STEM or environmental science or the arts, who feel that climate change adaptation and mitigation is essential to how they're thinking about building their careers. We've talked about it at the conference with other youth delegates, but we live in an age of access to so much information. Young people having phones, having social media, having YouTube, they're educated in ways that they don't rely on the classroom. We don't rely on formal streams of information to know what's going on. And sometimes that can be crippling. Like right now, watching the fires back home, I'm from Los Angeles myself. I have friends who are losing their homes. We see catastrophes all over the globe, and sometimes that can feel stupefying. It can stagnate us, and it can lead into climate anxiety, which has been talked about throughout this conference. And then we mentioned hope, which I do think is so important. You need to feel that you can drive change. But sometimes I think, and I notice it for myself, it's hard to access hope. It's hard to access hope when you're looking at such a grim picture and you're holding it all as a young person because you can see the problems around the world. You have capacity to take in that information, and that's where I think values are all the more important. Because when you're rooted in a sense of ethics, that you owe the person next to you, that you're interdependent from to them, then that changes why you're doing the work. It gives a sense of meaning. And I think that incorporating ethics as well into interdisciplinary subject matter, we've been piloting the teacher training module, and I was really excited to see that it goes into all different disciplines. It goes across math and science and history. And I think that's so vital, because if we're thinking about students in STEM who have the hard skills, or students who might be moving into the private sector and government moving forward, if they're not approaching this from a sense of purpose, from a deep sense that they have to make a change, that we have to see systems change because we are a part of the environment. The environment is not just that thing out there that I might be able to take from. Waste is not just this concept, it's something that I feel I am a part of changing. I think that will be the real difference. And so I just really want to highlight that from a young person's perspective, that I don't necessarily feel like just because young people have access to the information, we will be making the change. We have to start to shift systems change rooted in ethics, ethics of reciprocity, ethics of compassion, ethics of knowing that I am not separate from everyone in this room. And I'm from the United States. I'm here. I'm being able to learn from an organization that's rooted in India. But I'm also, when I'm back in the United States, it's not lost on me that I rely on global supply chains. I'm not separate in this very hyper-globalized world, and especially with a transboundary issue like climate change. So I was really excited too to see Dr. Chong mention that that's part of the national curriculum. And I think for educators, thinking about young people being inculcated with a different set of values will be really important for making meaningful action. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Now I request Professor Garg to please come and give the closing remarks for the session.
Thank you all the speakers for bringing out different aspects. I'll be doing injustice if I try to conclude and do this. So I'll leave with 2-3 thoughts from my 3 minutes which were left. The first thing, we have been listening quite a lot. I don't want to give any value judgment. Ethics and value versus economics and business. I think they are very important, because economics in a way drives the world. If you don't see money at the end, ethics are good, but maybe somebody else to follow. I'll not follow, I will make money. So this is something, the greed. Mahatma Gandhi said greed versus need. Greed is what is driving the world. He says need is good enough. No, everybody will be given need, can earn need. But we want all the money, we want all the efforts, we want all the comforts. That is the problem, I think. That is why no country is stopping it. The world is emitting 55 billion ton of carbon every year. 55. And we are supposed to reach below 30 by 2030. How is it possible? And our emissions are going up. I'm talking about greenhouse gas emissions. So nobody wants to divert, nobody wants to change. The other guy should do it. It is like doing something which is to my advantage, but others should do also to my advantage. That will not be done. No, we have to take care of. That is point number one. The second thing is indicators. From school level children, we should tell them what are the indicators, and how they'll be measured and followed. And these indicators may change year on year. A third class child may be told something which may be touching day-to-day life and going to school, being in a home, and maybe switch off something, I don't need so much lighting, those type of things. And then as we grow up, then more indicators could be introduced. I was reading through this SEBI report, BRSR report, 140 indicators are given. If you see Bloomberg, they are 7,000 indicators. Do the world need so many? I could convert this SEBI indicators to 40 indicators. That is big enough and good enough for managing everything. But that is the challenge. No, we want to cover everything. That is not required. That is indicators. How do we create indicators? How do we tell it to children at all levels? Education, media, that is very much important. And then third thing is, not telling once is not sufficient. You have to go on reinstating it. And that is important. Class 3, if you do something, class 4 also you should reinstate this thing. And then the child has to grow with that. You cannot just leave, oh, ho gaya bhai, everything is done, now you are into college, you do whatever you want to do. That is the third thing. And fourth, I think, Julia was talking about the youth, and they said why we have, and some colleagues were saying, why have we breached 1.5 and everybody is trying to do something on 1.5. There is something, I read a book which is, the title is, What If We Stop Pretending? We have not stopped pretending, we continue, we are 1.5. No, what actions we are taking? What is the financial transfers which is happening to developing country? This part of the world requires more mitigation action, more adaptation, so more money. Money is not flowing. And I can tell you one very important thing. Our budgets, the union budget, the state budget, we are, I should not say, but we are not aligning it with climate change. So we have huge money. You see, nobody can work for others. We have a lot of money. We have to put it properly, align it properly, and then see. So I just thank all the speakers, and they have really given me some thoughts. I don't normally take notes, but I have taken notes. It means the value of thoughts are very much there. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here, and Godspeed. Go well to your homes, and convey that this good messages what we have communicated here at CEE. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the closing remarks and sharing the sessions for today. And now I request Aishwarya, Deputy Manager at HCLF Foundation. She'll be talking about the GenCan initiative, which Dr. Shweta mentioned in her presentation. So quickly, she'll take us through the challenge, which emphasizes on the importance of collective action. Please come.
A very good morning, everyone, and I've been told that I have exactly less than a minute, so I'll keep up to the time. And it's an absolute honor to be here and to talk about this initiative that HCL Foundation is running in partnership with Center for Environment Education. HCL Foundation delivers the corporate social responsibility agenda of HCL Tech in India, and it's one of the apt panel to talk about this initiative. And when we initially started this discussion, we had few points in mind. The first one is we wanted to design a program that specifically not just focuses on climate education, but action, climate action. What do we do with the education that we have received? How do we use that education, the knowledge and the skills on ground within our immediate surroundings? So we looked at a program where we are enabling students to not just understand about climate change, but also implement that within their immediate surroundings, be it in their schools or in their communities. That's one thing. And the second thing that was very important, and also it's a core to the work that HCL Foundation does, is reach the unreached. We start with the last person. We always say that, it has to reach the last person, but we wanted to start with the last person. And this program specifically focuses on working with schools, communities, teachers and students from the underserved sections of the society. And the other thing is also that's something that we wanted to focus is how do you make it data driven? How do you take measurable climate action? It's very important to, have data-driven actions and solutions, and hence we built a digital platform that where data is collected and reported on the digital platform, at the same time striking a balance between doing on-ground work. So the climate action efforts are taken in schools and in communities, and the data is reported, and we launched it in 2023, and it's been 2 years, and the number and the reach is there and the impact is there. I'm not going to get into too much of that detail, but we are here specifically to launch a case study book, a compendium from last year, where it covers phenomenal work that our students and the teachers have done, not just within the schools, it's gone beyond schools as well. And we hope to keep this program going, and I'll be happy to talk a lot about this program maybe after this session. But on that note, thank you so much for listening. And Gayatri, would you like to come and talk about the compendium, please?
Aishwarya, can we hear sir? I request Kartiki sir to please come forward for the launch. Yes, sir. I request all the panelists to please launch the book. This book, the compendium, has 10 inspiring stories which are from different government schools across India. The amazing work that they have done to mitigate climate change.
There's a larger team there. We have some teachers and other things also. So thank you so much. And
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all the panelists. Now I request Professor Garg to please felicitate the panelists. We had a lot to learn about the climate change education perspective, right from the global level to the Indian level, and how can we integrate it into our curriculum, into our life, and into the programs that all of us and most of us are attached with. Thank you, sir. I request Dr. Shweta to please felicitate the chair. Yeah. Please come forward for the group photo. Yeah, all the panelists, please come forward for the group photo. Thank you so much. At the end, can we have a huge round of applause for all the panelists? Thank you everyone. I request Madhvi ma'am to make some announcements.
Hello, before we break, just a few changes in the venue I wanted to announce for the parallel sessions. I just make note of that. I'll just announce all the parallel sessions so that it is easier for everybody to understand. The one on harvesting change through equitable health education, that's in seminar room 5. Ecosystems in action, collaborative strategies for biodiversity conservation is in seminar room 6, just outside the auditorium. The session on teacher education for sustainable development imperatives for transformative learning has now been shifted to seminar rooms 1, 2 and 3. The parallel session on urban sustainability continues to be in seminar room 8. The session on AI in sustainability education is in seminar room 4, and the session on sustainability and handloom traditions of India will continue to be in the auditorium just after tea. So request you all to move for tea. Sorry. And outside.